So we've been brainwashed by the industry that we need to make big sweeping changes if we want to lose weight. And preferably the more painful and difficult, the better. But if this approach actually worked for the long term, wouldn't we all have perfect bodies by now? So this week I'm sharing a gentle alternative approach looking at our daily food habits and how they accumulate over time. So, welcome to Joyful Eating, episode 237. And today we're talking about the cumulative effect of your daily food habits. But before we get to that, the best bite I had, so it was Fogel's birthday, my oldest, on the weekend. And so my Irishman fired up the wood-fired oven, and because Fogel loves pizza, so he made his pizza dough, and the boys all had regular beautiful Napolitana style pizza with the authentic char. And I made myself a tofu pizza. So just slice tofu and then put a little bit of seasoning on it, and then did the tomato, did the cheese, and a bit of basil. And then my Irishman had bought this hamon, which is not Italian at all, but it's like this Spanish cured ham. Ever get a chance to go to Spain and have this stuff in Spain, it's amazing. Like it's nutty, it's so complex, there's so much flavor going on. Anyway, so we had this hamon, so I had that on my tofu pizza, and I'm still thinking about the flavor of the hamon. Like it was just so good. Anyway, that's enough about hamon and pork products. Today we're talking about daily food habits. So in this episode, first I'll share the story why I wanted to talk about this, and then we'll look at what is the cumulative effects of your current daily food habits. And then we'll talk about how to change your food habits and one tiny step for you to experiment with this week. So basically, the story behind this is I actually read an article by Leo Babauta from the blog Zen Habits, who I love. Leo, followed him for years and years and years, and I love his approach to habit change and how powerful like these daily actions can be in changing our lives. And so he'd written an article called "The Cumulative Effect of Your Daily Actions." And he shared just the things that he'd been working on. So he's learning to play chess, and he's doing some sort of movement every day so his body is fit. And he's writing a new book. So he's working on that an hour a day. And he was talking about how these daily actions add up to actually creating a lot of change and a lot of momentum in his life. And it just got me thinking of, oh my goodness, Leo, exactly the same thing applies to food. So let's talk about what is the current cumulative effect of your current food habits. And basically, if you like, the answer is simple. It's the body and the relationship with food that you have now. So how you feel about food and how you feel in your body, that shows us what the current effect is of your current habits. So how do we go about, so if you're happy with that, amazing, congratulations, and you can stop listening now and move on with your day. But if you're like, oh, actually that doesn't feel so good, like I'm not 100% happy with how I'm eating and I would like to change something about my body, then how do we go about changing that? And really, the good news is that Leo's right. Like changing our small food habits has this massive cumulative effect over time. So you didn't get to where you are overnight. It was overeating here and there, and the sum of those overeating sessions has got to you to where you are now. But the good news is that it's by tweaking those habits and redirecting those habits and changing them slowly over time, that's going to have the cumulative effect of you actually getting to the place where you want to be, where you do feel good in your clothes and you do feel good in your body and you feel happy when you're getting dressed in the morning. And it's not going to feel like awful and hard and that you need to do any big sweeping changes to get there. It's really cool that we have this ability. So how do we want to go about changing? So really, and Leo's a master at this, identifying what the habits are, choosing one habit to focus on at a time, identifying what that habit is, starting really small and experimenting. Just for one day, experiment with doing that habit differently, whether that's you changing it or you're stopping it or you're replacing it with another habit, and then see how it goes after your first experiment. And if it feels good, you might want to experiment with doing it again, and then again and again and again. And over the weeks and months and years, that's going to add up. And then when you feel like that new habit's embedded, then you start the next one and just keep repeating and keep going on until essentially this is work that I am still, or even though I'm at my ideal weight and have been for years, It's still something that I'm always mindful of my habits around food and all aspects of my health. And I do little experiments with myself so that I'm always improving it and improving it from a fun place, not from a mean, awful place. So, probably be helpful for me to share some examples of experiments that you might like to play around with. So if you know you're a grazer and you're randomly snacking on stuff, you maybe at the office someone's got a chocolate a bowl of chocolate, and every time you walk past you're dipping your hand in, or maybe you've got the habit of every time you walk past the pantry you're grabbing a handful of nuts, or just seeing what's in there and grabbing something, or you're opening the fridge and grabbing random snacks. So that habit has a huge cumulative effect. And so, what I would encourage you to do, if you feel like, yeah, that snacking thing is my snacking's a pretty random grazing, then I'd encourage you the tiny shift to make there is actually getting into the habit of serving yourself out. So rather than just grabbing handfuls and standing there in the pantry or the fridge, deciding, okay, yep, I am going to have some nuts, or I am going to have a couple of pieces of cheese, slicing the cheese up, putting it on a plate. You may want to sit down and enjoy it. You may want to still eat it standing in the kitchen, totally your choice, but just making that intention of serving yourself out before and putting the food away before you start snacking. And that's really powerful because when you get to the end of your snack, you've got that pause point to, yeah, and of course, you still may want more and you may go back for more, but at least it gives you that pause. Whereas if you're just handing the cart and eating whatever, then you're less likely to pause and you're more likely to overeat. So that one's a huge one. And because these little bites here and there, they have a huge cumulative effect. So the more intentionality you can bring to those, then yeah, that has a huge knock-on effect on your waistline. Okay, another habit to experiment with is putting your cutlery down. So just slowing down when you're eating, because when oftentimes we're just shoveling the food in, and I still do this every now and again. I'll be like, dinner time, I'm really hungry, and you've been go, go, go all day, and then you're like, then I'm like, oh, okay, slow down. There's no rush, Jules. And so the tiny habit that I have there is just putting my utensils down, my cutlery down in between bites. So when I've got food in my mouth, then cutlery goes down, I chew, I savor it, I enjoy it, and then I pick up the cutlery and load up the next fork. And just having that tiny habit of slowing down, that helps me feel, first of all, enjoy my food more, so it's worth it for that, but it also helps me feel more satisfied with what I'm eating, which means that I'm less likely to go back for seconds or thirds because I'm actually enjoying and feeling that sense of satiation from my first serving. Another habit, tiny habit you might like to experiment with if you're someone who is a member of the Clean Plate Club, which I used to be, and I'm very happy to have rebelled from that, is just experiment with leaving a couple of bites behind. Unless you really feel like you're really hungry and you have to eat it all, actually getting into that habit of stopping when you feel that sense of satisfaction and leaving some food so that you're not always using your plate to determine how much food to eat. Particularly helpful if you're eating out or someone else is serving out how much food you have. Another example that you might like to experiment with, particularly if you know you've got a bit of an emotional or stress eating thing going on, is when after you feel that urge to eat, when you know you're not hungry but you've got this urge to have something anyway, just putting a pause in there. So rather than reaching straight for the tub of ice cream or the whatever it is that the salty snacks, actually just pausing in that moment, or if you've already started eating, just pausing whenever you notice and going, hang on, I'm not really hungry here. And just asking yourself, what do I really need right now? And your brain will surprise you with the answers, but just putting that pause in and bringing some self-kindness and compassion, that's an opportunity to actually to change that. And you may still decide that, yeah, I really still do need some ice cream, but rather than devouring the whole tub, you might decide, oh, yeah, just one scoop would be not nice. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to really enjoy it, and let yourself feel satisfied with that. And then the final experiment, and there are like thousands of habits that I could do, but the final one that I thought that I know is really powerful, particularly if you find yourself overdoing it on the chips or the chocolate or whatever, is actually giving yourself permission to have whatever treat food that you're telling yourself you shouldn't have, right? Because what happens is we there's things that we love and we really want them, but then we tell ourselves I should be having that if I want to lose weight, and we deny ourselves. And then of course that builds the desire for them. And so then of course when we do have access to chips or cookies or cake or whatever it is, we're inhaling it all and feeling that sense of being out of control. And there's someone that I was working, I've been working with in the Naturally Healthy Club, and she's like, I can't believe I've fallen back into this pattern. And she was like, every afternoon or sometimes after dinner, she'd be over snacking on the salty snacks or the chocolate or whatever. And I was like, okay, let's let's just do an experiment where you give yourself permission to have a treat every day if you want it and see what happens. And so she came back to me and was like, oh my goodness, Jules, I can't believe it. She's like, I've gone from feeling out of control to actually, some days I have my snack and I enjoy it and it's great. And then I move on with my day. And then some days I actually don't even want it. So she was, wow, just that one thing of giving herself permission radically changed everything for her. So that's it for today. So your home play is, yeah, don't feel like you need to do all this at once. Remember, Leo, Zen habits, tiny steps are very powerful. And so it's these tiny daily actions that's the same messaging in the book Atomic Habits as well. It's these tiny daily actions accumulate into big change. So yeah, just choose one habit and do an experiment this week and see how it feels. And then if it feels good, keep going. If it doesn't feel good, then you've learned something amazing and you can choose a new habit to experiment with. And yeah, have a beautiful week experimenting, and I'll catch you next week.